The night the truth finally shattered his world began with the glitter of Manhattan lights reflecting off the windshield of his Mercedes S-Class. Adrian Cole had just spent the past 6 hours at a rooftop penthouse with his mistress, soaked in champagne and bad decisions. He walked into his gated estate at nearly 3 meters, humming, confident, completely unaware that everything he thought he owned had already slipped through his fingers. The foyer was dark, too dark, the kind of dark that carried a warning. "Emily," he called out, tossing his coat on the marble console table. No answer. His phone vibrated. A single text from his realtor. "Congratulations. The buyer signed. Property officially transferred." Adrian frowned. Buyer signed. At 2:47 a.m., he stepped deeper into the living room and froze. The house was empty. Gone were the Mont Blanc pens he scattered across his desk. Gone were the leather-bound ledgers he loved to flaunt. Gone were his custom suits, his watch case, even the framed diplomas. The shelves were bare. The air felt hollow. On the kitchen island sat a single envelope sealed with gold wax, his name written in his wife's handwriting. Adrian's pulse spiked. Emily never raised her voice, never argued. She endured everything. His cruelty, his absence, the rumors, even the mistress he believed she'd never find out about. Hands shaking, he tore open the envelope. Inside was a short note. "By sunrise. Nothing here will belong to you, not even the past. I sold the house to someone who's been waiting a long time for this moment. He'll explain the rest." No signature, just her wedding ring. A sudden knock at the front door echoed through the empty halls. Firm, cold, final. Adrian's stomach dropped. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door, and the silhouette standing under the street lamp made his blood run cold. It was the one man he swore he'd never face again. To be continued. Emily Hart Cole had always been the kind of woman people underestimated. Not because she was weak, far from it, but because she had learned to move quietly through life, carrying her storms in silence. At 32, she worked as a children's book illustrator in a small studio overlooking the Hudson River, her days filled with gentle colors, soft pencil strokes, and stories about kindness. But her own life had been anything but gentle. Her marriage to Adrian Cole had begun like something out of a glossy Manhattan romance. Adrian, the rising financial star, the charismatic strategist, with a laugh that could fill a room, had swept her off her feet during a gallery event in Brooklyn. He told her she grounded him. He told her she was his peace. And she believed him. Everyone did. Adrian had a talent for selling dreams. But dreams turned to shadows within their first year of marriage. Business trips multiplied. Phone calls at midnight with his team. Missed anniversaries. Cold dinners reheated past midnight. And then came the girl's first rumors. Then whispers. Then undeniable proof. Still, Emily stayed. Not out of weakness, but because she believed in fighting for what she built. She believed in keeping promises even when they grew heavy. And for a long time, she thought Adrian might remember the man he once pretended to be. But the last straw came 3 months ago. She had walked into his office to surprise him with lunch and found him laughing with his mistress, Serena Vale, perched on his lap like she owned the world. He didn't even look ashamed, just annoyed. "You should have texted," he'd said, completely unfazed. "This is business." Emily didn't cry then. She simply placed the lunch on his desk, turned around, and closed the door. She had learned long ago that Adrian only respected power and silence could be power, too, but she knew staying would destroy her. And she knew he would never let her leave cleanly. Adrian was the kind of man who collected dominance like medals. If Emily tried to walk away, he would strip her of everything, her home, her savings, her stability, just to remind her she was nothing without him. Except she wasn't nothing. She just hadn't shown him who she truly was. What Adrian never bothered to learn, because men like him rarely do, was that Emily came from a family with quiet influence. Her late father, Noah Hart, had been a respected real estate investor with properties across the East Coast and ties to several powerful board members. Emily had inherited far more than Adrian ever suspected: shares, trust accounts, and leverage he would never imagine. But she kept it hidden because, unlike Adrian, she didn't use money to control people. She used it to free herself. And when Adrian crossed the final line, when he humiliated her for the last time, Emily did not scream, beg, or negotiate. She planned quietly. Strategically, precisely. She found a buyer for the house. One person Adrian despised more than any other man on the planet. A man he once betrayed in business. A man who had waited years for the perfect moment to strike back. Emily delivered it to him on a silver platter. And she did it with the calm of a woman who had finally stepped out of the fire. The night she handed over the house keys, she whispered to herself, not as a threat, but as a promise. This time, I choose me. Somewhere far from Adrian's selfish world, her new life was beginning. But before she could claim it fully, she had one last thing to do: face the storm head-on. The Cole estate had always been a symbol of Adrian's arrogance, perched on a quiet ridge overlooking the Hudson Valley. The mansion looked like something ripped from an architectural digest, spread manicured hedges, a circular driveway lined with imported stone, a front door framed by two towering lanterns that glowed like beacons of wealth. At night, the landscape lights washed the house in a soft golden hue, making it seem almost peaceful. Almost. But tonight, as a cold wind swept across the grounds and the lights flickered against the dark sky, the place felt less like a home and more like a battlefield, the kind where the loser didn't yet realize he'd already lost. Inside, the atmosphere was equally deceptive. The foyer, usually scented with Emily's lavender candles, now smelled of nothing but polished marble and emptiness. Gone were the soft throws she placed on the leather couch, the stacks of children's books she used for inspiration, the delicate mugs she used to drink her morning tea. Every trace of her warmth had vanished, leaving behind a hollow museum-like stillness. The kitchen, once the heart of the home, felt even colder. Adrian used to brag about the Sub-Zero fridge, the marble island big enough for 5 people to work on, the wine fridge stocked with bottles he couldn't pronounce. Now all that stainless steel shimmered under the pendant lights like a series of silent accusations. Upstairs, their bedroom was stripped bare. The bed frame remained, but the quilt Emily had hand-stitched during their first year of marriage was gone. The bookshelf was empty, saved for one single object left intentionally in the center: the wedding photo of them at the Brooklyn Bridge, the one Emily had once loved. The glass frame was cracked straight through the middle. Outside, the property seemed to hold its breath. The pool shimmered under the moonlight, untouched. The terrace chairs were neatly arranged around the fire pit that Emily used to gather around during summer nights. The garden she tended every morning: roses, lavender, rosemary looked abandoned, the petals scattered like confetti from a forgotten celebration. And beyond the property line stood the thing Adrian feared most: the neighboring estate belonging to the one man he despised above all others, Hunter Lell. Hunter with his tailored suits and quiet power. Hunter, whose tech firm Adrian tried to sabotage 5 years ago in a failed hostile takeover. Hunter, who vanished from the social scene after the scandal, only to re-emerge even wealthier, more influential, and infinitely more patient. He lived just beyond the ridge, separated by a wrought iron fence and a long history of resentment. And tonight, when Adrian opened his door, it was Hunter who stood there, illuminated by the street lamp like some uninvited omen. His presence alone shifted the air. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. This was a carefully orchestrated moment, and Emily had delivered it to perfection. For this was the new setting of the story: not romance, not reconciliation, but reckoning. A mansion once ruled by arrogance was now the stage for accountability. And the man standing at Adrian's doorstep was not here to negotiate. He was here to collect a debt the universe had let sit for far too long. And what he was about to reveal would tear open everything Adrian believed he controlled. Hunter Lall didn't need an introduction. His presence alone carried the kind of power that made lesser men straighten their posture and question their choices. At 40, he had the composed intensity of someone who had rebuilt himself from the ashes of betrayal. His dark hair was neatly combed back, his tailored charcoal coat dusted with the faint shimmer of frost, his eyes steel gray and unreadable, the kind of calm that warned of storms, not peace. Adrian Cole felt that storm the moment their eyes met. How did you?" Adrian stammered, clutching the door frame as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. Hunter stepped forward, hands tucked casually into his coat pockets. "You really should keep up with your notifications, Adrian. It's embarrassing to learn about your own house through a text." Adrian's jaw clenched. "You bought it. You think this is funny. This is my home." It was Hunter corrected, his tone smooth but surgical, past tense. Hunter's calmness only made Adrian's panic spike. "Where's Emily? What did you do to her?" A faint smirk appeared. "Emily is safe, safer than she ever was under your roof." Adrian's fists trembled. "She sold it to you of all people." Hunter's expression didn't change. "She made a strategic choice." And just like that, the truth hit Adrian like a punch. Emily knew exactly who she was selling to. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, calculated. a move Adrian never expected from the quiet wife he underestimated. Hunter stepped inside without waiting for permission, his gaze sweeping across the empty foyer. "You really let this place fall apart emotionally," he said softly. Emily did well, removing herself. "Don't talk about her like you know anything," Adrian snapped. Hunter raised a brow. "I know enough. I know what you did to her. And I know what you tried to do to me." That made Adrian's breath hitch. Because Hunter was not simply a rival. He was a man with reasons. Very personal reasons. 5 years ago, Adrian sabotaged Hunter's first major tech acquisition by leaking false financial data. It nearly bankrupted Hunter's company, nearly buried his reputation. But Hunter survived, quietly rebuilding, quietly rising, quietly becoming a force far greater than the one Adrian tried to destroy. And he never forgot. Adrian swallowed hard. "So this is revenge." Hunter tilted his head. "Revenge? No. Revenge is emotional." Then he leaned in, voice dropping. "This is justice in weather. Dulled from and weather." The word lingered in the cold air like smoke. "You destroyed deals, reputations, trust," Hunter continued calmly. "You hurt people who believed in you, including your wife." Adrian barked a laugh, shaky, desperate. "You don't know her. She wouldn't involve herself in this." Hunter slipped a folded document from his coat. "She involved herself more than you realize." Adrian's heart pounded as he took it. A deed transfer contract signed by Emily. Hunter watched him unravel. "She came to me herself," Hunter said quietly. "Told me she wanted out. Told me she was done living in your shadow." Adrian's face drained of color. "And she asked me," Hunter added, "to make sure you finally understood what it feels like to lose something you thought you controlled." The edges of Adrian's vision blurred. Emily. Quiet, gentle Emily. The woman he thought he had broken beyond repair had just orchestrated the first move in a war he never saw coming. And Hunter wasn't finished. Adrian Cole prided himself on control. Control of his career, his home, his reputation, and especially his narrative. But control slipped through his fingers the moment he stepped outside his mansion and saw the black SUV pulling up the driveway, headlights slicing through the cold pre-dawn air. The door swung open and out stepped Serena Vale, his mistress. Her heels clicked sharply against the stone walkway as she rushed toward him, her designer coat barely concealing last night's glitter. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair tousled. She looked every bit the secret he intended to keep hidden. "Adrian, why didn't you answer your phone? I thought you." She froze when she saw Hunter standing behind him. The air snapped tight. Hunter's eyebrow lifted slightly, amusement flickering in his cold gray eyes. "Well," he murmured, "looks like the party is arriving in installments." Adrian felt heat crawl up his neck. "Serena, go home. Now is not." But Serena never took orders well, especially when she sensed drama. Her gaze darted between the two men, then to the empty house behind Adrian. "Why is everything gone? Why is your house stripped bare?" "Adrian, what happened? Are we not here?" Adrian hissed, grabbing her wrist. Hunter smirked. "Oh, don't stop her. She seems eager to clarify things." Serena jerked her hand back. "What does he mean by clarify?" "Adrian, what is going on?" She marched past Adrian and into the foyer. She stopped dead. Her voice cracked. "Where are my things? Where's the necklace you gave me? Where's the Adrian?" "Everything's gone." Adrian followed her, helpless, angry, unraveling. Emily cleared the place out. Shay sold the house. Serena blinked, then laughed. No, she wouldn't do that. She's too soft, too pathetic." Hunter stepped forward, voice dropping into something sharp. "You severely underestimated her. Both of you." Serena flinched at the tone, recognizing authority when she heard it. Adrian clenched his jaw. "None of this concerns you," he snapped at Hunter. "Oh, but it does," Hunter replied, pulling out his phone. "Because the entire city is already talking about it." He tapped the screen and turned it toward them. A headline flashed across a news blog. "Betrayed wife sells husband's mansion in secret midnight deal, buyer is his corporate enemy." Below it was a photo of Emily taken earlier that week as she walked out of a bank. Serene and composed, a woman stepping into her power. Adrian staggered. How did the spread already? Hunter tucked his phone away. "You live in a glass house, Adrian, and you've given people plenty of rocks." Serena's voice rose, shrill with panic. "This makes me look like a homewrecker. I can't have my name out there like this." "Adrian," Hunter's laugh was low. "Oh, sweetheart, your name has been out there for months." Serena rounded on Adrian. "Fix this, fix it right now." But Adrian wasn't looking at Serena. He was staring at the empty house he no longer owned, at the headline exposing everything, at Hunter's calm, unshaken expression, at the looming truth. Emily had struck first, and the world was watching. "Adrian," Hunter said softly, leaning in close enough that only he could hear. "This is only the beginning." Adrian's breath hitched. Serena grabbed his arm desperately. "Adrian, do something." But he couldn't. For the first time in his life, he had absolutely no control. And the next blow was coming faster than he could brace for it. Adrian Cole had always believed rock bottom was something that happened to other people. People without ambition, without polish, without the sharp instinct he prided himself on. But now, standing barefoot in his gutted living room while dawn crept over the valley like an unwelcome truth, he realized something terrifying. Rock bottom wasn't a moment. It was a free fall, and he was still falling. Serena sat on what used to be the staircase rug, knees pulled to her chest, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The picture of desperation. "Adrian, I can't show my face anywhere," she whispered. "Everyone at work already hates me now. This headline. I'll never get hired again." Adrian didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was spiraling too fast. Emily. Hunter. The midnight sale. The humiliation exploding online. How had he missed all of it? A sharp ringtone sliced the silence. Adrian snatched up his phone only for the blood to drain from his face. Incoming call. Parker and Wells Investments. His firm. His boss. His future. Adrian swallowed and answered. "Mr. Parker, I can explain." "Explain," the voice on the phone thundered. "Explain why the board woke up to your personal scandal trending on every business feed. Why your wife sold your estate to an enemy who's been circling for years. Why investors are asking if your instability reflects on us." Adrian felt his chest tighten. "This is a private matter. In our world, nothing is private," Mr. Parker shot back. "You've jeopardized our credibility. Effective immediately. You're suspended pending review. Turn in your corporate devices within the hour." Bambo. The line went dead. Suspended. Adrian stared at the phone like it had betrayed him. Serena's voice trembled. "Suspended. What does that mean for us?" He didn't respond because another notification popped up in email. Subject. Urgent. "Your account has been flagged." His bank. His stomach flipped. Another buzz. Another email. Another notification. Every one of them bad. Serena crawled closer. "Adrian, talk to me. What's happening?" He staggered toward the kitchen island, opened his banking app, and nearly dropped the phone. Several accounts frozen. One account seized pending investigation. One credit line terminated due to risk exposure. "Emily," he whispered, gripping the island edge. She knew the financial connections. She planned this. Hunter's words echoed in his skull. "This is justice." Serena's panic turned sharp. "You told me we would be fine. You said you had everything under control." Adrian shot her a glare. "I didn't expect her to think." Hunter's voice cut from the doorway. Both of them spun around. Hunter stepped inside with the casual confidence of someone who owned the ground he walked on, which technically he now did. "Don't blame her for your downfall," Hunter said, hands in his pockets. "She simply stepped out of your shadow." Adrian trembled with fury. "Stay out of my life." End quote. "Your life," Hunter corrected, "is currently being auctioned off piece by piece. And you haven't even seen the worst part." Serena whimpered. "Worse? How could it get worse?" Hunter lifted a brow. "Your eviction notice will arrive by noon. New ownership means new terms." Adrian felt the floor tilt beneath him. Evicted from his own house. Public scandal. Suspended. Accounts frozen. Enemy takeover. Hunter stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You thought humiliation was the end," he said softly. "It's only the middle." Adrian's breathing turned shallow, and Hunter delivered the final blow. "Emily wanted you to feel everything you made her feel, and she's only just begun." Emily Hart Cole didn't run. She didn't hide. She didn't even watch the chaos unfold online, though her phone buzzed endlessly with notifications, messages, and thinly veiled pity from people who had once ignored her existence. Instead, she sat in a quiet corner of the River Cafe in Brooklyn, staring out at the East River as the morning sun shimmered across the surface like scattered diamonds. This cafe had always been her escape, a place where she sketched stories for children while sipping warm cinnamon tea. Today, though, she wasn't sketching. She was waiting. And she wasn't alone. Across from her sat Claire Hart, her older sister, the only person who knew the full truth. Claire tapped a glossy file against the table. "He'll come after you," she warned. "Adrian never accepts losing." Emily didn't look away from the water. "He didn't lose me today," she said softly. "He lost me years ago." Claire studied her, then opened the file. I pulled everything you asked for. His offshore accounts, his shadow investments, the fake charity he used to hide assets. All the evidence is here. Emily finally turned. Good. Then we're ready. Claire exhaled. You know. Most people in your situation would just leave. You don't need any of this. You have more than enough to disappear. Start fresh. Emily smiled faintly. I'm not doing this for revenge. Claire raised a brow. Really, because I saw the headline. I'm doing it. Emily interrupted gently. For closure. She meant it truly. For years. Adrian chipped away at her confidence until she stopped recognizing her own reflection. For years, he treated her love as currency, her loyalty as leverage, her silence as weakness. Selling the house wasn't the revenge. Watching him finally face consequences wasn't the revenge. Her revenge, if it could even be called that, was reclaiming her life. Claire leaned back. So, what's next? Emily took a slow breath. Next, I meet with Hunter. Claire's eyes narrowed. I still can't believe you contacted him. Emily traced the rim of her mug. He understood what it felt like to be blindsided, betrayed, discarded, and powerful enough to help you. Claire added. Emily didn't deny it. She didn't have to. Hunter LL hadn't just been a strategic buyer. He had been instrumental in setting the trap that exposed Adrian's financial corruption. And in return, Emily had given him the opportunity he'd waited years for. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't emotional. It was justice. And justice had a price. One Adrian was finally paying. Claire softened. I just want to make sure you're safe. I am, Emily assured her, for the first time in a long time. But safety didn't mean peace. Not yet, because Emily still carried one secret, one she had kept buried deep. Her hand slipped unconsciously to her stomach, pressing gently through her coat. She hadn't told Adrian. She hadn't told Hunter. She hadn't told anyone but Claire. And while the world thought she sold the house to punish her husband, the truth was much more delicate, much more fragile, much more dangerous. She wasn't fighting for revenge. She was fighting for a future, one growing quietly inside her. Claire noticed the gesture and placed a warm hand over Emily's. You know he'll find out eventually, she whispered. Emily nodded. Yes, but not today. Outside, the river glittered under the rising sun. Calm, steady, unstoppable. Emily exhaled. Today, she said softly, is the day I finally stopped being afraid. And somewhere across the city, Adrian Cole had no idea. He was about to lose much more than a house. Adrian Cole didn't remember driving. One moment he was standing in his empty mansion, chest tight, adrenaline burning through him like acid. The next he was in the underground parking lot of his office tower in downtown Manhattan, clutching the steering wheel of his Mercedes like it was the last stable thing in his collapsing world. But even here, his sanctuary, his kingdom, he wasn't safe. As he stepped out of the car, voices echoed through the garage. Did you see the article? His wife sold it to Hunter Lell of all people. Serves him right. Everyone knew he was cheating and embezzling. If you two freshen as 47 embezzling. Adrian's blood ran cold. He moved quickly toward the elevators, head down, avoiding eye contact. But whispers followed him like shadows. The doors slid open on the 31st floor, usually the floor where people straightened up, lowered their voices, and prepared to impress. But now, employees stared openly as he passed. Some looked away in discomfort. Others smirked. Adrian could handle being mocked, but being pied, that was intolerable. He stormed into his office only to find someone already inside. Lynn Parker, the head of compliance, stood by his desk with a stack of files. She didn't look startled. She'd been waiting. We need to talk, she said. Adrian fought to keep his voice steady. I'm suspended. You shouldn't even be here. Lynn stepped closer. Your suspension doesn't protect you. His heart thudded painfully. Protect me from what? She placed the files on the desk. His desk, but no longer his territory. From an investigation that's about to go federal. He felt the world tilt. What investigation? Lynn opened the top folder. Your wife delivered evidence. Bank transfers. Offshore accounts. False invoices. Everything the board suspected but could never prove. Adrian's mouth fell open. Emily, she wouldn't know where to look. But even he heard the lie in his voice. He had underestimated her again. Lynn continued, expression unreadable. The board believes you funneled investor money into your private ventures. If this goes to the SEC, you won't just lose your position. She paused. You'll lose your freedom. Treason. The word lodged in Adrian's throat like a blade. He staggered back, gripping the edge of the desk. My wife, he whispered. She destroyed me. Lynn shook her head. Your wife exposed you. There's a difference. Then, with unexpected softness, she added, you should have treated her better. In betrayal. As she left, the door clicked shut behind her, sealing him in the ruins of his own making. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt genuinely afraid, and yet, beneath the fear, something else churned. Rage, burning, blinding rage. He grabbed his phone, fingers trembling, and dialed the one person he knew would answer. Serena, he snapped when she picked up. Pack a bag. We're leaving the city. Leaving, she shrieked. Adrian, I'm not running from your mess. Everyone already knows my name. Do what I say, he barked. Emily is trying to destroy me. Hunter is helping her. I'm not going down alone. Serena hesitated. What are you going to do? Adrian looked out the window, the Manhattan skyline glimmering with cold indifference. I'm going to remind Emily she was nothing until I chose her. His voice dropped to a whisper filled with venom, and I'm going to take back everything she stole. He grabbed his coat. He couldn't realize that in this moment of fury he had already lost the war, because Emily Hart Cole was no longer the woman he controlled, and the next move belonged to her. Emily arrived at the downtown law firm precisely at noon, not a minute early, not a second late. She walked through the glass doors with a calm so controlled it bordered on chilling. Her navy coat felt elegantly around her, and her steps were steady, nothing like the trembling wife she used to be. Hunter Lell was already waiting. He stood near the window, Manhattan sprawling behind him like a steel and glass cathedral. He turned when he sensed her presence, his eyes softening in a way they never did for anyone else. You look different today, he said quietly. Emily offered a faint smile. Different is good. Hunter motioned for her to sit, but she remained standing, hands folded neatly in front of her. Before we discuss next steps, she said, I need to tell you something. He biz now. Hunter's expression sharpened. You're not backing out. No, she replied. I'm going forward, just not alone. He studied her for a beat. Then his gaze dropped to her hands delicate, trembling slightly despite her composure. Then realization flickered. Emily, he murmured. She nodded once. 8 weeks. Silence settled between them, thick but not painful. Hunter stepped closer, voice softer than she'd ever heard it. Does Adrian know? No, Emily said. And he won't. Not yet, Hunter exhaled slowly. That changes everything. It changes nothing, she corrected gently. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about protecting a life. Hunter's jaw tightened. Then Adrian is more dangerous than I thought. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. He already tried to track me this morning. My sister saw a black car outside her apartment. Hunter's entire demeanor shifted in an instant, calm sharpening into steel. He won't get near you. I'll make sure of it. Emily didn't argue. She simply stepped forward and placed a sealed folder on the table. The folder from Claire. These are the final documents, she said. Everything needed to take this public. Hunter opened the folder. His eyebrows lifted. This is more than evidence. He breathed. This is a demolition blueprint. Emily swallowed hard. I'm done living quietly. If he wants to come after me, he'll be stepping into the light. Hunter met her gaze. You're braver than you think. For the first time in weeks, her eyes glistened. But she didn't break. She wouldn't. Not when she had someone else to protect. Now, before either could speak again, the conference room door burst open. Claire rushed in breathless. Emily. Adrian's coming here. Emily's pulse spiked. Now he stormed out of his office. Security saw him heading to the parking garage. Hunter's expression darkened. He thinks he can intimidate you. Claire nodded. He's furious. He thinks you leaked evidence to the board. Emily steadied herself. She had known this confrontation would come eventually. Just not today. Hunter stepped between her and the door. You don't have to face him. But Emily shook her head. I do. Hunter searched her face. What he found there changed everything. Resolve. Strength. A quiet fierceness he had only glimpsed until now. All right, he said, voice low. But you won't face him alone, if we not. He moved closer, not touching her, but standing near enough that she felt the unwavering certainty he carried. Outside the glass walls, the elevator dinged. Claire's voice trembled. He's here. Emily inhaled deeply. Her hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach. This wasn't just about justice anymore. This was about the future, and Adrian Cole was about to realize that the woman he underestimated was gone forever. The elevator door slid open with a metallic hiss, and Adrian Cole stepped out like a storm contained in human form. His hair was disheveled, his tie crooked, his expression twisted in a fury that bordered on feral. Security trailed behind him, unsure whether to intervene or run. He didn't even glance at them. His eyes locked straight onto the glass-walled conference room where Emily stood with Hunter Lell beside her. The sight made something inside him snap. He shoved the door open so hard it rattled against the wall. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he barked. Emily didn't flinch. She stood still, her expression composed, hands steady at her sides. Hunter, however, took a step forward, blocking Adrian's path with deliberate calm. "Raise your voice again," he said quietly, "and you'll be escorted out of your former property in handcuffs again." Adrian's face went scarlet. "Stay out of this." "I can't," Hunter replied. "You made me part of it years ago." Adrian's glare flicked to Emily. "And you, why? Why would you humiliate me like this? Sell the house, leak evidence, turn my company against me after everything I gave you?" Emily inhaled slowly. "You didn't give me anything. You took from me, piece by piece." Adrian scoffed. "Oh, please. You were nothing without me. I made you relevant. I made you somebody." Hunter let out a short, dark laugh. "You made her invisible." Adrian's chest heaved. "Emily, you need to come home. We can fix this." Emily blinked. "There is no home." "There will be," he insisted. Stepping closer, "Fire him." He jabbed a finger at Hunter. "Drop the accusations. Delete whatever lies you've spread. Come back and I'll forgive." The word forgive made something inside Emily break, not in weakness, but in clarity. She raised her chin. "You don't forgive someone you abused." For the first time, Adrian faltered. Emily continued, voice steady as steel. "You cheated. You lied. You stole. You humiliated me publicly and privately. And when I tried to leave, you tightened the leash." Hunter watched her with quiet respect. Claire watched her with awe. Adrian watched her with disbelief. Emily stepped forward. "You want to know why I'm doing this now? Why I walked away? Why I finally fought back?" Her voice caught for half a second, but she didn't let it crack. "Because I'm done shrinking myself to fit inside your world." "Does Evan to all the skein?" Adrian shook his head, stepping closer. "Emily, please." "No," she said sharply. "You don't get to plead now." She pulled a document from her folder. The room fell silent. Adrian stared at it. "What is that?" "Your final warning," she said softly. "A cease and desist for stalking, harassment, and unwarranted pursuit. Another incident, and Hunter's lawyers will escalate this to law enforcement." Adrian's eyes widened. "You think you can scare me with paperwork?" Hunter leaned forward. "Check the signature." Adrian snatched the document and froze. It wasn't Hunter's signature. It wasn't Emily's. It was from a federal prosecutor. Adrian staggered back. "Why?" "You went to the government." "You," Emily held his gaze. "I went to the truth." Adrian's voice cracked into a whisper. "You would destroy me." She shook her head. "You already destroyed yourself." Security appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Cole, you need to come with us." Adrian backed away, staring at Emily like he no longer recognized her, like she had become someone impossible, someone powerful, someone free. "Emily," he whispered, voice raw, "you can't do this." But she already had. Hunter stepped beside her, a silent wall of protection. Emily exhaled, steady and unshaken. "This," she said softly, "is only the beginning of the truth you tried so hard to bury." Adrian was escorted out, still staring at her, still stunned, still falling. And behind him, Emily remained standing tall, finally becoming the woman she was always meant to be. Adrian Cole had always believed he was untouchable. He walked through life with the swagger of a man convinced the world bent around him. But now, sitting alone in a cramped interrogation room at the Manhattan Federal Building, he finally realized something horrifying. The world had moved on, and it left him behind. The metallic hum of the fluorescent lights grated on his nerves. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his shirt stained with sweat, and his tie lay crumpled on the table, an unintentional symbol of his unraveling life. Across from him sat Agent Miriam Stone, a woman known for her cold efficiency. She flipped through a folder thick with documents, each page another nail in the coffin of Adrian's former life. "You've been a busy man." "Mr. Cole," she said. Adrian's voice cracked. "These are misunderstandings. Business mistakes. Fraud," she corrected. "Money laundering. False reporting. Tax evasion. 3 shell companies registered in the Caymans. A falsified charity fund. Offshore transfers linked to embezzled assets." Adrian swallowed hard. "Those accounts aren't mine." She slid a page forward. "Your digital signature says otherwise." He clenched his fists, but his voice trembled. "Someone set me up." Agent Stone raised a brow. "Your wife, Adrian Frozyheart Cole," she continued calmly. "Her documentation has been consistent, thorough, and fully corroborated. She didn't accuse you out of anger. She provided evidence you left behind. Adrian felt his chest constrict. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Agent Stone leaned back. Mr. Cole, your wife wasn't the weapon. She was the witness. He stared at the table, shaking. Agent Stone gathered the documents. You're not under arrest yet, but you will surrender your passports. Report weekly, and refrain from contacting your wife or any witnesses involved. Witnesses, he echoed weakly. Multiple, she said, standing. People you should have treated better. When she left, the silence felt suffocating. Minutes passed, then hours. By the time Adrian was released into the lobby, the afternoon sun had dipped into a dull gold. He reached for his phone, only to find Serena standing there, arms crossed, expression cold. Where the hell have you been? She snapped. Adrian didn't answer. Serena's eyes were red. People are talking. I'm becoming a joke online. My influencer deals are gone. My job at the firm suspended. Everyone thinks I'm just your side project. You are my Adrian stopped himself too late. Serena's jaw clenched. Say it, Serena, please. No, she cut in, tears streaking down her cheeks. I ruined my reputation for you. I defended you. I believed you when you said Emily was boring, that she held you back, that you deserved more. She shoved her phone into his chest. A photo glowed on the screen. Emily standing outside Hunter's building, calm, radiant, strong. Serena hissed. You said she was nobody, and now she's the one everyone respects. Adrian's throat tightened. Serena, don't leave. But Serena had already stepped back. I'm not leaving, she said softly. You lost me long ago. You're the one who's leaving everything. She walked away without another word. Adrian watched her disappear through the revolving doors, swallowed by the city he once thought he owned. Now he owned nothing. Not his house, not his job, not his mistress, not his reputation, and worst of all, not the woman who once loved him. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Adrian Cole sank onto a bench, hands trembling, breath unsteady. He finally understood. Emily wasn't destroying him. She was freeing herself, and he was simply the wreckage left behind. But the true blow, the one that would break him completely, it hadn't arrived yet. The evening air outside the River Cafe carried a soft chill, brushing against Emily's cheeks as she stepped out onto the cobblestone walkway. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, one hand instinctively drifting toward her abdomen. The world felt louder now, horns honking on the Brooklyn Bridge, distant sirens, the hum of city life. But inside, Emily felt an unsettling quiet because everything she had planned was working too well. Hunter exited right behind her, phone pressed to his ear as he handled yet another legal flare-up involving Adrian. His voice was calm, measured, but she could sense the storm beneath the surface. When he hung up, he approached her slowly. Emily, he said, you should lay low for a few days. She nodded. I know, but something in her tone made Hunter pause. You're not telling me something. I have dirt. Emily turned away, staring out at the shimmering skyline. Hunter, when I handed you those documents earlier, I gave you everything I had. I know, he answered gently. No, she whispered. Everything I had on Adrian. Hunter's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Emily inhaled shakily. There's something else. Something I never told him. Something I didn't want anyone using as ammunition. Hunter studied her face, seeing fear she had buried under layers of strength. Emily, what is it? Before she could answer, Claire burst through the cafe doors, breathless. Hunter, there's a problem. Emily's heart dropped. What now? Claire held up her phone with trembling hands. A headline glowed across the screen. Cole Investments claims evidence was doctored wife under scrutiny. Emily's stomach nodded. No, that's not possible. It gets worse, Claire whispered. She scrolled, revealing a video clip playing on every major business network. Adrian standing at a podium, looking composed, looking strategic, looking rehearsed, and lying. My wife, he said smoothly, has been manipulated by a man with a vendetta. Evidence was falsified. Funds were placed without my knowledge. I plan to cooperate fully, but I ask the public to consider the possibility that Emily Hart Cole is not the victim, but the pawn. Emily's breath hitched. He's flipping the narrative. Hunter's eyes darkened. He's framing you. Why? Claire added. And people are believing him. Emily staggered against the railing, the city's lights blurring. How could he twist this so fast? Hunter clenched his jaw. He had this prepared. He knew exposure was coming. He crafted a backdoor narrative. Emily pressed a hand to her stomach, panic rising like a tide. Hunter, if they believe him, they won't. Hunter cut in firmly. We won't let them. But his eyes told a different story. This wasn't just damage control. This was war. Claire swallowed. There's more. Emily looked up, dread tightening her chest. What? Claire hesitated, then whispered what none of them expected. Adrian filed an emergency injunction, claiming you're mentally unstable. The world tilted. He's using your anxiety records from last year. Claire continued, voice cracking. He claims you're emotionally erratic, vindictive, and incapable of rational decision-making. Emily palled. He's trying to discredit me. Buck speeder. I'm high stealer. Hunter's fists tightened. He's trying to destroy you. Emily could barely breathe. If the court believes him, they won't, Hunter said fiercely. I'll make sure of it. But Emily knew the truth. Reputation was fragile, and Adrian still had influence. Her vision blurred. I never wanted this to escalate like this. Hunter caught her shoulders, grounding her. You didn't escalate anything. You exposed the truth. And he's reacting like guilty men always do. Emily nodded weakly. But deep down she knew something awful. Adrian wasn't done fighting, and he hadn't yet discovered her biggest secret. If he ever did, everything she built could crumble in one devastating blow. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in Claire's guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling as the weight of Adrian's counterattack pressed down on her chest like a stone. Every headline, every tweet, every message questioning her sanity felt like a knife twisting slow and deep. But the worst part wasn't the public. It was the silence from inside her own body, the kind that came from fear, stress, and the fragile life she hadn't told the world about yet. At dawn, Claire found her sitting on the floor, back pressed against the wall, hands wrapped around her stomach. Claire whispered, kneeling beside her. Talk to me. I'm okay, Emily lied. Claire touched her arm gently. You're shaking. Emily finally exhaled, voice small. What if he wins? What if the court believes him? What if he takes everything again? Claire cupped her face. Listen to me. Adrian's playing dirty because he's losing. That's what cowards do when they're drowning. Emily nodded, but fear still clung to her like a shadow. Before Claire could say more, the doorbell rang. Emily tensed. Who? It's Hunter, Claire said, checking the window and relaxing slightly. He looks intense. If you can't, daughter. Hunter always carried a quiet power. But this morning, he radiated something sharper. Controlled anger, calculated determination. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, eyes immediately finding Emily. You need to pack a bag, he said. Both of you. Emily blinked. Why? What happened? Hunter handed her a tablet. A video loaded. A reporter stood outside Adrian's former mansion interviewing a neighbor. The man looked uncomfortable but spoke anyway. I always thought Emily was fragile. She cried a lot. Sometimes we heard arguments. Adrian tried to help her. He's a good man. Emily's stomach dropped. The reporter pressed. Did she appear unstable? Yes. Actually. Emily's vision swam. He's lying. I never spoke to him. I don't even know him. That's the point, Hunter said grimly. Adrian is paying people to paint you as unbalanced. He's building a case. Claire cursed under her breath. He's setting her up. End quote. Hunter nodded. And he's escalating. I had a contact in the courthouse send me something. He pulled out another document, an emergency petition filed by Adrian, seeking a mental competency evaluation for Emily. Emily covered her mouth to keep from screaming. He wants to make me legally unstable. He wants to unmake your voice. Hunter corrected. Claire paced. Judges can deny this. Right. Hunter hesitated. Usually, but Adrian named your anxiety diagnosis and he filed it under the guise of concern. Emily's breath caught. He's using my vulnerability. Hunter knelt in front of her, voice dropping to a gentler register. Emily, you need to get somewhere safe. Somewhere. He can't track you. Track me, she whispered. He wouldn't. He already tried, Hunter said. I confirmed your phone was pinged. He's tracing your movements. Claire put a hand over her mouth. My God. Emily felt her heartbeat slam against her ribs. Hunter, what do I do? We go somewhere he can't manipulate you, he said. Someplace private, controlled, safe. Emily looked up at him, eyes shining with fear. I didn't want any of this. I know, Hunter said softly, but Adrian pushed you past the point of no return. Emily wiped her eyes. Where are we going? Hunter stood, offering his hand. To the only place Adrian can't touch you. Emily hesitated, then slid her hand into his. But as they walked out the door, she couldn't shake the chill climbing her spine because Adrian Cole was not a man who backed down. And the next move he was preparing would cross a line no one could ever undo. Hunter Lell didn't believe in hesitation. The clear's throat moment, he sensed danger tightening around Emily. He acted. Within an hour, they were in his black Range Rover, gliding across the quiet early morning streets toward a secluded property he owned on the outskirts of Westchester, an estate few people even knew existed. Emily sat in the back seat, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. She stared out the window as the city faded into open roads and dense trees. Her heartbeat wouldn't slow, not with Adrian escalating, not with her pregnancy hidden like a fragile secret under her ribs. "Emily," Hunter said gently from the front, "we're almost there." Claire beside Emily squeezed her arm. "You're safe. He can't reach you here." Emily nodded, but fear still pulsed through her bloodstream. "I'm not scared for myself," she whispered. "I'm scared he'll hurt someone trying to get to me." Hunter's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He won't get close enough. They reached the safe house 10 minutes later. It was nothing like Hunter's sleek Manhattan penthouse. This place was quiet, tucked behind tall wrought iron gates. A stone path wound toward a warm lantern-lit cottage surrounded by towering oaks. It felt peaceful, protective, almost healing. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of cedar and old books. A fire crackled in the hearth. Hunter motioned for her to sit. "Emily," he said, lowering his voice, "I have surveillance here. If Adrian tries anything, we'll know." Emily sank into the armchair, finally feeling a small measure of safety. But safety was fragile, especially when the past refused to stay buried. Claire emerged from the kitchen holding 3 mugs of tea. "We'll figure this out," she reassured. But before Emily could answer, Hunter's phone buzzed sharply. He checked the screen and froze. "What is it?" Emily asked. Sitting upright, Hunter's expression darkened. "It's Adrian. He just filed another petition." Claire's voice cracked. "For what this time?" Hunter swallowed, jaw clenched. "For emergency access to your medical records." Emily felt the room tilt. "He can't do that. He has no right." "He's claiming you're a danger to yourself," Hunter said. "He wants a judge to grant him access so he can use your past anxiety treatment as ammunition." Emily pressed a hand to her stomach. "He's trying to take everything again." Hunter crouched beside her. "We're fighting it. I've already contacted an attorney." Emily's breaths came uneven. "If he gets those records, if he finds out I'm pregnant," Claire gasped softly, "he'll use it against you. He'll do worse." Emily whispered, "He'll try to claim custody." Hunter lifted his gaze to Claire, then back to Emily. "He won't get that far, I promise." Before anyone could respond, a sudden ping echoed through the room. Emotion alert. Hunter grabbed his tablet. His surveillance feed flashed. Gate sensor triggered. Unauthorized vehicle detected. Emily shot to her feet, heart slamming in her chest. "He found us." Hunter scanned the footage, then exhaled in shock. "It's not Adrian." Claire blinked. "Then who?" Hunter turned the screen. A woman stepped out of the dark SUV, slim, expensively dressed, her hair in perfect waves despite the early hour. Emily's breath caught. "Serena," she whispered. Hunter narrowed his eyes. "What is she doing here?" Serena Vale walked straight to the gate, pounding on it with the force of someone unhinged. Claire gasped. "Oh my God." "She looks terrified." Hunter moved to the door. "Stay here." Emily grabbed his arm. "No, let her in." Hunter hesitated. Emily's voice shook, but her conviction didn't. "Whatever she's running from, it's connected to Adrian." Hunter unlocked the gate remotely. Serena sprinted toward the house like a woman chased by ghosts. When she reached the porch, she stared at Emily with wide, frantic eyes. "He's gone too far." Serena choked. "You don't understand. Adrian isn't trying to ruin you anymore. He's trying to destroy you." Serena Vale stumbled into the cottage like a woman on the edge of collapse. Her makeup was smeared, her breath ragged, her hands trembling as if she'd sprinted through hell to get here. Hunter shut the door behind her while Claire guided her to the couch. But Serena couldn't sit. She couldn't breathe. "Emily," she gasped, gripping the back of a chair. "You don't understand. Adrian has lost his mind." Emily stepped forward cautiously. "Serena." "What happened?" Serena swallowed hard, blinking back tears that smeared her mascara even further. "I tried to leave him. After everything blew up online, after the job suspension, the threats, I told him I was done." Hunter folded his arms. "He didn't take it well." Serena shook her head violently. "He didn't take it like a normal person." He snapped. Claire exchanged a worried glance with Emily. Serena's voice quivered. "He came to my apartment this morning, banging on the door, screaming, 'Your name, not mine, yours.'" Emily's breath hitched. "Mine. He kept saying you ruined him," Serena whispered. "That he needed to restore balance. That he needed to get back what you stole." Hunter stepped forward. voice low and dangerous. Did he threaten her? Serena nodded, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. Worse, he showed me something. Emily's heart dropped. Showed you what? Serena hesitated, then reached into her purse with trembling fingers and pulled out a flash drive. I stole this from him, she said, because I knew if I didn't leave with something, he wouldn't let me leave at all. Hunter took the flash drive. What's on it? Serena wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Proof, plans, messages. Adrian has been digging into your life. Emily, not just your medical records, your accounts, your old therapist, your former employers. Emily went pale. Why? Serena whispered. Because he isn't trying to win in court anymore. He's trying to erase you. Hunter's eyes flashed with fury. He's building a narrative to destroy her credibility permanently. More than that, Serena said shakily. He hired someone. Emily's pulse kicked. Hired someone. A private investigator at first, Serena said. But then someone else. Someone who doesn't do legal work. Claire froze. Are you saying? Serena nodded slowly. Yes. Emily's knees weakened. Hunter caught her before she fell. Serena continued, words spilling out like poison. He said, if the system won't silence you, force will. He even showed me emails. Coded messages. Payments routed through burner accounts. Emily pressed a hand over her mouth, trembling. No, he wouldn't. But Serena cut her off with heartbreaking certainty. Emily, he already did. A suffocating silence filled the room. Hunter was the first to move. He slid the flash drive into his laptop and the screen illuminated with folders, dates, receipts, surveillance screenshots, GPS logs tracing Emily's movements. Claire gasped. He was stalking her. Emily clutched her stomach, fighting a wave of nausea. Hunter scrolled deeper, jaw tightening with every file. Encrypted messages, bank transfers, a photo of Emily leaving her doctor's office. Hunter froze. Emily. His voice cracked in a way she had never heard. He knows. Emily's heart stopped. Knows what? Hunter turned the screen toward her. A single line glowed. Pregnancy confirmed. Acquire leverage. Emily's breath shattered. Claire covered her mouth. Tears welling. Serena whispered, voice trembling with regret. I didn't know he would take it this far. Emily, he doesn't just want to destroy your name. Why? Her next words chilled the room. He wants the baby. Emily collapsed back into the chair, the world spinning violently. Hunter stepped in front of her, voice steady but burning with rage. He will never touch her or that child. Serena nodded frantically. That's why I came. Adrian is unhinged. Emily, you need to disappear before he makes his next move. Emily swallowed hard, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not from weakness, but from the terrifying clarity of what was now at stake. Her freedom wasn't the target anymore. Her unborn child was. And Adrian Cole had become something far darker than a vengeful ex. Emily had never known terror like this. Not when she found Serena in Adrian's lap. Not when she walked out of their home for the last time. Not even when her entire life exploded online. But nothing compared to the moment she saw that line on Hunter's laptop. Pregnancy confirmed. Acquire leverage. A cold, consuming fear wrapped around her spine. Hunter knelt in front of her, hands steady on her knees. Emily, hear me. He's not getting near you or the baby. Not now. Not ever. Emily shook her head, staring blankly at the screen. He knows. Hunter. He knows. Serena stepped closer, guilt written all over her face. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was always calculating, always cold. But this is monstrous. Claire wrapped an arm around her sister. Breathe. We're here. You're not alone. If you wanted the question. But Emily felt anything but safe. Her pulse raced. Her palms shook. Her mind spiraled into every dark possibility Adrian could unleash. He'll go to court. Emily choked out. He'll say I hid the pregnancy, that I'm unstable, that he won't get that chance, Hunter said, standing abruptly, energized by fury. I've already called a security detail. They'll be here in minutes. Emily flinched. Security. Hunter. This is not a corporate dispute. This is my life. Very 7. Thank you for watching. And that's exactly why I'm not taking risks. Hunter replied. Adrian has money connections. I've dealt with men like him before they push until someone pushes harder. Serena swallowed. He's unraveling. He told me last night that he built you, that he could take you back like you were some investment he lost. Emily closed her eyes. He never saw me as a person, just property. Hunter's jaw tightened. Then it's time you stop playing defense. Emily met his gaze. Shaken. Defense is all I have left. Not anymore, Hunter replied. Because now we fight back strategically. He grabbed the flash drive and plugged it back in. We collect every file, every message, Every threat. Then we take it somewhere Adrian can't twist, bury, or charm his way out of. Where? Claire asked. Hunter turned, eyes dark with purpose. To the district attorney. Emily's breath caught. But what if they don't believe me? Adrian is already flipping the narrative. People think I'm unstable. Because you've been quiet, Hunter said gently. But when the truth speaks, Emily, it speaks loudly. Serena stepped forward. And I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. I don't care what it costs me. Emily stared at her, stunned. Serena, he'll come after you. Too, Serena laughed bitterly. He already did. I'm done being afraid of him. A loud chime interrupted them. The front gate camera. Hunter strode to the monitor. A black car idled outside. Not Adrian's. But close enough that Emily's heart seized. Is it him? She whispered. Hunter zoomed in. No, it's my security team. Relief crashed over her like a wave and she sagged back into the chair. Hunter opened the door as two former federal agents approached. Professional and stern. This is Emily, he told them. She is not to be left alone under any circumstances. The taller agent nodded. Understood. Emily held her stomach, exhaling shakily. So, what happens now? Hunter crouched again, voice softening. Now you take back control, not just of the case, but of your life. Emily felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in months. Strength. Real rooted strength. Hunter extended his hand. Emily, heart cold, he said. Are you ready to fight? She placed her hand in his, not trembling, not hesitant, not afraid. Yes, she whispered. For my child, I'm ready for all of it. End quote. End quote. But none of them knew. Adrian Cole was already making his next move, and this one would strike at the heart of everything she just vowed to protect. Adrian Cole stood in the dimly lit back office of a downtown bar, a place he once used for private celebrations, not secret meetings. His reflection in the cracked mirror looked unfamiliar. Red-rimmed eyes, disheveled hair, the wild desperation of a man clinging to the last thread of control. Across from him sat a man known only as Ridge. End quote. Not a friend, not an associate. A fixer the kind hired when a person had run out of legal options and sanity. Ridge flicked ash into a tray. You sure you want to go through with this? Adrian's jaw clenched. She's destroying my life. Ridge smirked. No, man, she's just telling the truth. You're destroying your own life. Adrian slammed his fist onto the table. I want leverage. I want her scared. I want her silent. Ridge raised a brow. And the kid. Adrian Fraza. A dangerous glint flashed in his eyes. That child, he whispered, is mine, and she hid it from me. She doesn't deserve it. Ridge studied him for a moment, then leaned back. You're not paying me enough for a kidnapping. Adrian stiffened. Who said anything about Ridge? Cut him off. Relax, I'm not stupid. But you want pressure. Fine, I can get you information. Access locations. Adrian exhaled shakily. Good, do it. But he never noticed the small device blinking beneath the table. A listening bug planted earlier by someone who knew Adrian would panic. Someone who understood his patterns better than anyone else. Back at the safe house, Hunter Lell checked his tablet as a soft chime sounded. The transcription feed appeared instantly. Adrian Cole. She doesn't deserve the child. Ridge, you're not paying me enough for a kidnapping. Hunter's expression turned to ice. Emily, sitting across from him, felt her entire body go cold. He's escalating. He's losing control, Hunter said. And men like him get dangerous when they feel powerless. Claire covered her mouth. We need to show this to the DA. We will, Hunter replied. But there's more. He tapped the screen. A live GPS feed lit up. A blinking red dot. Adrian's car. Emily's pulse spiked. Is he coming here? Hunter enlarged the map. The dot was moving erratically across the city, but not toward Westchester. No, Hunter said. He's not coming to you. Serena stepped forward, pale. Then who? Hunter zoomed in. Stopping point. Brooklyn. Emily's former apartment. Emily's heart dropped. No, he still has the spare key. Hunter stood abruptly. He thinks you're hiding there. Claire's eyes widened. What if your old landlord? What if your neighbors? Hunter grabbed his coat. I'm going now. Emily grabbed his arm. Hunter, wait. You can't face him alone. You don't know what he'll do. Air it. Hunter's jaw tightened. He won't touch me, but he might hurt someone looking for you. Emily shook her head. We should call the police. Hunter held her gaze. They won't act unless something already happened, Serena whispered. He's spiraling. He's not thinking straight. Hunter turned to the two security agents. Stay with Emily and Claire. No one gets in or out. Understood. They nodded. Emily stepped toward him. voice trembling. Be careful. His expression softened just enough. Always. He left the cottage, the door slamming behind him. Emily stood frozen in the center of the room. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Claire touched her shoulder. He's going to stop Adrian. Okay, he won't let anything happen. But Emily shook her head slowly. Because she had just realized something. Adrian wasn't targeting her location. He was targeting her past. Every piece of her old life. Every tie she once had. Every weakness he could twist. And the next person on his list was someone she cared about far more than she had ever admitted. Hunter's SUV sped down the quiet highway toward Brooklyn. But inside the safe house, Emily could barely remain seated. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Her breaths came shallow and uneven, not out of fear for herself, but for the realization that had just hit her. Adrian wouldn't just stalk her. He would stalk anyone connected to her former life. Claire paced beside the fireplace. Phone clutched tightly. Serena sat silently near the window. Tears dried on her cheeks, but her expression tight with guilt and dread. One of the security agents approached Emily. "Ma'am, you should try to rest." "I can't," Emily whispered. "Adrian is unpredictable. If he goes after someone who never asked to be involved." Her voice faltered. Claire froze. "Emily, who would he target?" Emily hesitated just long enough that Claire's eyes widened. "Emily," Claire pressed softly. "Who are you thinking about?" Emily swallowed hard. Her throat ached. She hadn't spoken this name in months. Hadn't even let herself think it. "My former landlord," she whispered. "Mrs. Keene." Claire frowned. "The older lady who lived downstairs from you." Emily nodded slowly. "She used to bring me homemade soup. She heard me cry when Adrian screamed at me over the phone. She was the one who convinced me to get help, to see a therapist." Serena blinked. "Does Adrian know she helped you?" Emily's chest tightened. "He saw her number on my phone months ago. He asked who she was. I told him she was just a neighbor." Claire exhaled shakily. "Emily, if he thinks she knows anything, he'll manipulate her," Emily whispered. "Scare her, or worse, try to make her validate his lies." Serena covered her mouth. "He'll twist her words. He always does." Before Emily could respond, Hunter's name flashed on Claire's phone. She answered instantly. "Hunter, did you find him?" Hunter's voice came through sharp, breathless, laced with tension. "Yes, he's here." Emily felt her stomach drop. "At the apartment." "Yes," Hunter said. "He broke in." Serena gasped. "Oh God, Mrs. Keene, she's safe." Hunter replied quickly. "I got here before he reached her. She's shaken but unharmed." Emily collapsed into a nearby chair, relief sweeping over her so intensely she almost sobbed. "Hunter, thank you," she breathed. But Hunter's voice changed colder, harder, controlled. "Emily, you need to hear this." Claire glanced at her sister nervously. "What happened?" Hunter exhaled slowly. "He wasn't looking for Mrs. Keene." Emily blinked. Then who?" "He was looking for evidence. Anything that proves you're unfit. Old letters, old prescriptions, anything he can twist." Claire muttered a curse under her breath. But Hunter wasn't finished. "Emily," he said quietly, "he left something behind." "I won," Emily's heart stuttered. "Left what?" "A note," Hunter replied. "Addressed to me." Serena stiffened. Claire froze. Emily's pulse hammered. "What did it say?" Emily whispered. Hunter hesitated just for a second. But that single second felt like the world collapsing. It said, Hunter read aloud, "You took my home. You took my wife. You won't take my child." Emily couldn't breathe. Hunter continued, his voice low and shaking with contained fury. "If I can't have her, no one will." Gizmas. Claire's phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Serena covered her face, whispering prayers through trembling fingers. Emily felt everything inside her break. Fear, anger, grief, disbelief, until only one emotion remained: resolve. She wiped her tears, looked up at the security agents, then at her sister, then at Serena. "When Hunter gets back," she said with trembling strength, "we're not hiding anymore." Claire's eyes widened. "Emily." "No," Emily said firmly, hand resting protectively over her stomach. "Adrian wants a war." She stood up, spine straightening, voice turning still. "Then he's going to get one, because this wasn't just survival anymore. This was a mother protecting her child." Hunter returned to the safe house long after sunset, his shoulders tense, his expression stone. The moment he stepped inside, Emily stood. She didn't wait for an explanation. She didn't wait to catch her breath. She simply walked straight to him. "Tell me everything," she said. Hunter nodded once, as if he expected this. "He's unraveling fast. He tore through your old apartment like a man searching for oxygen. When I confronted him, he didn't deny anything. Not the note, not the threats, not the fact that he knows about the pregnancy. Emily inhaled sharply, but her eyes didn't flinch. He looked me in the eyes. Hunter continued, and said, "You stole something from him." He was not final vile. Claire's face twisted in disgust. Stole. He treated her like a possession. Serena, sitting quietly in the corner, whispered, "He doesn't see people, only things he owns." Emily stepped even closer to Hunter, voice steady. "Then, we're done reacting. We're done hiding. It's time to end this." Hunter studied her for a beat. Really studied her. The fear was still there. Yes, but layered beneath it was something far stronger. Something resilient. Something unbreakable. "You're sure?" he asked. Emily nodded slowly. "I won't let him weaponize my past or this baby. I won't let him twist this narrative again. We take everything to the district attorney tomorrow morning. Full evidence. Full testimony. No holding back." Hunter exhaled, relief flashing through his eyes. "Then I'll make the call tonight." But Emily wasn't finished. "After that," she added, "we go public." Claire nearly choked. "Emily public." Serena sat up straighter. "You mean the media?" Emily nodded. "He's trying to destroy my reputation through lies. The only way to stop a narrative written in the dark is to expose the truth in the light." Hunter hesitated. "Once it goes public, there's no turning back." "I don't want to turn back," Emily replied. "I want my voice. I want my safety. I want my child's future." Silence settled in the room. Not heavy, but electric. Charged with the beginning of her rise. Hunter stepped toward her until they were inches apart. "If we do this, you'll have to stand in front of cameras, reporters, strangers who will analyze every word. Are you ready for that?" Emily held his gaze. "I wasn't ready to leave. Adrian, I wasn't ready to fight this hard. I wasn't ready to do any of this." She touched her stomach gently. "But I'm ready now." Claire teared up silently. Serena looked away, ashamed she ever stood beside Adrian. Even the two security agents exchanged looks of respect. Hunter nodded once, slow, deliberate. "Then tomorrow morning, we bring everything. Financial proof, the flash drive, the recorded conversation, the break-in photos, and his written threat." Emily squared her shoulders. "No more letting him rewrite my story." Hunter stepped aside and motioned her toward the dining table. "Then we start preparing your statement." Hours passed. Emily practiced the truth, her truth out loud. The fear didn't vanish, but it transformed, hardened, sharpened, became purpose. Hunter watched her, something unspoken in his expression. Not pity, not sympathy, admiration. Claire whispered at one point, "You sound like someone who already won." Emily allowed herself a small smile. "Not yet, but soon." Just after midnight, Hunter's phone buzzed. A text. He froze. Emily's heart jumped. "What is it?" Hunter turned the screen toward her. A single message from an unknown number. "Enjoy your last night. Tomorrow, everything changes." A C. Emily's blood ran cold. But instead of fear, something else rose in her chest. Fire. She looked at Hunter. "Then tomorrow," she said softly, "we end this." Because Adrian wasn't the only one who could change everything in a single day. Emily could too. Morning broke over Manhattan with the kind of cold blue clarity that felt like a warning or a promise. Emily stood outside the district attorney's office, flanked by Hunter, Claire, Serena, and two federal agents. Her breath formed soft clouds in the winter air, but her resolve felt solid as steel. Hunter touched her elbow gently. "Last chance to turn back." Emily shook her head. "No more running. Today, Adrian learns I'm not his shadow." They stepped inside. The DA's team was already waiting. Conference room prepared, files organized, camera equipment set for the official statement. Emily sat at the head of the table. Not Hunter, not the attorneys. Here, as if the universe finally reflected who the real center of this story was. The DA entered, offering a respectful nod. "Mrs. Cole, thank you for coming forward. We've reviewed the initial evidence. It's extensive." Emily inhaled. "There's more." Hunter placed the flash drive on the table. Threats, surveillance, attempted coercion, a recorded conversation with a fixer discussing leverage over Emily's pregnancy, and with the DA stiffened pregnancy. Emily touched her stomach gently. "Yes." The DA exchanged a dark look with his team. "Then protecting you becomes a federal priority." Before they could continue, the door burst open. Security rushed in. "Sir Adrian Cole is in the lobby demanding to see his wife." Emily went pale, but the DA raised a hand. "He won't be seeing anyone." A moment later, shouting erupted from the hallway. Adrian's voice loud, frantic, unhinged. "Emily, Emily, Open this door. You ruined me. You stole everything. Hunter moved protectively toward the door. Claire grabbed Emily's hand. Serena flinched. Adrian's voice cracked through the walls, rage vibrating with desperation. You think this changes anything? You think you matter? You think that child is safe? Emily felt her whole body flood with cold. The DA stood abruptly. That's enough. He stepped into the hallway, and moments later, federal agents swarmed. The shouting turned into a strangled roar as Adrian was forced to the ground. Get off me. She's my wife. She's mine. No, Emily whispered from the doorway, stepping forward with trembling strength. I was. Now I'm free. Adrian's head jerked up, eyes wild. You won't win. I'll take everything. Federal officers hauled him up. You already lost, Emily said softly. And you did it to yourself. Adrian froze. For the first time, there was no rage, no arrogance, no control, just the hollow recognition of a man finally facing consequences. He was led away in handcuffs, screaming her name until the elevator doors swallowed him. Silence followed. Real silence. Emily's knees buckled, but Hunter caught her. It's over, he whispered. You won. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from fear, but release. Claire embraced her tightly. Serena stood by the wall, crying quietly, finally free of her own chains. The DA approached. With the evidence you've provided, we will pursue charges for coercion, fraud, harassment, stalking, and conspiracy. He won't be able to touch you or your child again. Emily nodded, wiping her tears. Thank you. Hours later, after statements were finalized and protection orders were secured, Emily stepped outside into the winter sunlight. The city felt different, whiter, brighter, free. Hunter joined her on the steps. What now? He asked softly. Emily looked out at the skyline. Now I start over, on my terms. Hunter hesitated, then offered his hand. Not demanding, not expecting, inviting. Emily took it, and for the first time in her life, it didn't feel like surrender. It felt like a beginning, a real one. She rested her other hand on her stomach, feeling a small, steady reassurance. Her child would grow up safe, loved, protected, because she fought for that future bravely, fiercely, completely. Emily Hart Cole walked down those courthouse steps not as a victim but as a survivor, a mother, a woman who reclaimed her life. And Adrian Cole. He disappeared into a justice system he could no longer manipulate. The ending was not poetic. It was not dramatic. It was simply right. Exactly the ending he earned. Exactly the freedom she deserved. And the story closed fully, firmly, beautifully right here. You're still here with me, aren't you? And if you made it all the way to this moment, then something in Emily's story touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it showed you that even in the darkest seasons, you're allowed to choose yourself. You know, the Stoics said something beautiful. What stands in the way becomes the way. End quote. Marcus Aurelius wrote that not to sound wise, but because he understood pain and the courage it takes to rise from it. Emily's journey reminds us that healing isn't loud. Healing is the moment you decide your peace matters more than someone else's chaos. And maybe tonight you needed to hear that, too. So before you go, just take a breath with me. You survive so much more than you give yourself credit for. And like Emily, you deserve a life where you're seen, respected, and free. If this story touched you even a little, do me a small favor. Hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs strength today. And subscribe so you don't miss the next story that might speak to you exactly when you need it. We're here together, and this is just the beginning.